I had a massive breakthrough yesterday. And as it usually happens, and this time is no different, these types of breakthroughs come as a result of going through something very difficult. And in this case, this difficult thing had to do with immigration. For the last week, we've been dealing with a lot of obstacles and complications and bullshit we have to deal with. And most of the time, I'm the one who has to deal with it because I'm the one sponsoring her. I'm the Canadian citizen. Everything's in English. So I'm the one who usually deals with everything. But yesterday, we had unexpected complications once again. However, it was on my wife's end, and there's absolutely nothing that I can do about it. And that was both frustrating and at the same time, it made me feel helpless. Because, she's my wife, I love her, I want to protect her, to take care of her. And in that specific situation, I could not, and it just made me feel very helpless and like I was being a bad husband. And that in turn led to me realizing, well, no, actually, it led to me feeling very frustrated and overwhelmed and kind of like sad because whenever something is right, whenever something is meant to be, it seems like everything just kind of like magically falls into place and everything is effortless. And us being together, this entire process has been super long and super complicated and super frustrating. There's always obstacles. And it just got to the point where it's like, it's so frustrating and so overwhelming that I started questioning, like, what if we're just not meant to be together? And unfortunately, that's not something that I can accept. It's just not something that I can consider, not something that I can even. It's kind of like, how I say that giving up is not an option when it comes to my health. It's the same thing. Giving up is not an option when it comes to our relationship. But it just got to the point because of all the immigration thing and everything else I've been going through for the last 16 months. It just kept building up and building up. And it got to that point where yesterday I was just like really overwhelmed and frustrated and confused and sad. And it's just like all those emotions. And I was trying to explain to my wife what I was feeling, what I was experiencing. And the best way that I found to do that is the way that I find to do most things, because as a storyteller, to reduce something down to a simple story, such as a metaphor or an analogy, allows me to take something very complex, sometimes very overwhelming, and simplify it down to something very easy to explain and understand. And that both helps me, one, understand it myself, and at the same time, be able to explain it to someone else. So I tried to kind of come up with the best metaphor that I could to explain to my wife what it felt like. So what I came up with was like, it feels like for the last 16 months, I've been stranded in the wilderness, in the forest, far from civilization, and I've been struggling to survive. I need to, survive every day. I need to find food. I need to find shelter. I need to find my way back to civilization. That's what it's felt like. And by agreeing to be in a relationship with me, by agreeing to marry me, you kind of inherited that, even though you didn't really choose to. So it felt like, okay, we're both stuck, lost in the wilderness, trying to find our way back, trying to survive. And because it's something that's happening to me, and even though she chose to be with me, she didn't choose that challenge. And I believe that I've manifested that it's something that subconsciously that I chose that I need to go through in order to grow and evolve as a person. But it's not something she chose. She kind of inherited it when she agreed to be in a relationship with me. And as a result of that, I always felt like I needed to protect her, to take care of her. So I'm in the wilderness, struggling to survive, and on top of that, I have to take care of her. I have to protect her. At least that's what it felt like. And I realized, as a result of trying to explain everything to her, that I've been looking at this wrong. Because yes, she did not really choose this. But I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and everything that happens to us is what is meant to happen. So yeah, she did not choose this, but she chose to marry me. She chose to be in a relationship with me. So on some level, she did choose this. It's not my responsibility to protect her, to take care of her. It's already difficult enough for me to survive in the wilderness, find my way back to civilization, or, in the real world, survive this supposedly unsurvivable cancer. So I realized, okay, what I need to do is change my perspective. It's not the both of us stranded in the wilderness and it's my responsibility to protect us and keep us alive and get us back to civilization. She is safely back in civilization. I am the one who's stranded in the wilderness, who needs to survive and get back to civilization, get back to her. And that analogy, as I was explaining it, kind of evolved and shifted because of the translator. Because, yes, I do speak Spanish, but when I'm trying to explain more complex things like that, I use a translator just to make sure that I'm able to fully and properly express what I'm trying to say. And I use the word wilderness while trying to explain it, but the translator translated that to desert. So instead of being stranded in the wilderness, the forest, whatever, as I was picturing in my mind, it kind of transitioned to me being stranded in the desert. And as I was explaining everything, and the more that I thought about it, it evolved into, okay, it's basically like this. I'm on a flight to be with my wife. Plane crashes in the desert. I'm the only survivor. But I don't come out unscathed. I have a broken leg, which would equate to, in the real world, the tumor in my leg, which explains why sometimes my leg hurts, why I can't walk that far, why I'm limited and I'm kind of weak on that front. And I also broke some ribs during the crash, which explains the difficulty breathing, which explains the coughing, which can also be explained by, the dry desert air, the dust, the dehydration. And of course, in the real world, that would be the tumors in my lungs. And I also got a concussion, which obviously would be the tumors in my head, which explains why every once in a while I get headaches and certain other symptoms that would be related to that. And the more that I thought about it, it's like, okay, it really is like I'm stranded in the desert. I have these injuries. I need to survive. I need to find a way to get back to civilization, to get back to my wife. But luckily, I have a few tools in my toolkit. I have one, a cell phone, which in the real world, not very imaginative, but it's my cell phone. It's what allows me to communicate with my wife, to stay in contact with her, to be able to share with her, hey, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm experiencing. And on her end, it allows her to, express to me, hey, I'm always there for you. I will wait for you as long as it takes. Just do what you have to do to survive. I'm here. I love you. I'm praying for you. I'm waiting for you. Just find your way back to me. So the cell phone in the metaphor and the cell phone in real life are pretty much the same thing. It's a way for us to remain connected. And then finally, the other thing is that other form of connection, which is our love. And once again, that's the same in the real world as it is in the metaphor, except in the metaphor, it would take the form of a compass. So our connection, our love, it's what keeps us connected over this great distance that separates us. It's what allows us to believe without the shadow of a doubt that no matter what, we will find a way back to each other. We will be together. We will build a life together. And it's what, in the real world, allows me to always feel there's a certain sense of peace that's always with me. Yes, there are times that I'm going through difficult things and it's overwhelming and I'm struggling and sometimes I'm sad and I'm frustrated and all these things. But deep down underneath, there's always this sense of peace, this knowing that everything's going to be all right. And a huge part of that is that love, that very, very, very deep connection that I have with my wife. And it's kind of the same thing in the metaphor. It's that connection, that compass, if you will, that allows me to know this is the direction you need to head in. This is the proper, the right next step to take in order to get closer to being reunited with your wife. So the more that I thought about this analogy, the more perfect that it seemed. And the more it just every time, I don't know, it happened yesterday, so it's still very recent. I'm sure I'm gonna think of other stuff as it goes on. But so far it's just I just think about it, it's like, oh, this new thing, it's like, yeah, okay, that also makes sense. And oh, that also makes sense, and everything else. And it's just ever since I came up with that and that metaphor and explained everything to her. And also I kind of made the decision of all right, my only responsibility right now is to get out of that desert, to get back to civilization, or in other words, to cure myself. That is my only responsibility. Everything else, such as immigration, is my wife's responsibility. It doesn't change anything. I'm still the one who needs to do most of the work. I need to fill out all the forms. I need to, call to get answers to our questions, and I need to do a bunch of stuff. That won't change. But the responsibility has been lifted off my shoulders and placed onto hers. And just that has literally lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. And now my sole focus remains getting out of that desert, surviving, getting back to her. And yes, along the way, I am going to do things to help her with immigration and everything. So it's that doesn't change. It's not like I'm suddenly nope, I'm not doing anything. You handle everything when it comes to immigration. It's just this is your project. It's your responsibility. I do not have the bandwidth right now to deal with that responsibility on top of the responsibility of I need to survive. I need to get out of this desert. I need to find my way back to you. And just that clarity, that distinction, that drawing the line in the sand, if you will, ironically, because we're talking about the desert, has made a huge difference. It's just it's helped so much in terms of clarity and motivation. And I just feel everything makes sense now. I don't feel that stress, that overwhelm, that confusion that I felt yesterday. I know that everything's going to be all right. I'm at peace. Everything is great. Everything's amazing. I just need to focus on surviving because I've done enough challenges in my life to know when I'm by myself, I'm okay. I can take care of myself. It doesn't matter how many times I fall down, how many times I give up. I'm always going to get back up and keep fighting. But having that responsibility of thinking it's me and my wife that are stranded there and I have to take care of myself and of her and of everything, it was just too much. It was overwhelming. It was counterproductive. It was keeping me from focusing on what's truly important right now, which is me getting better, getting out of that desert, surviving. And that needs to be my sole singular focus right now. And just, it's funny how a simple story like that, a simple metaphor can clarify everything, can lift a huge weight off your shoulders and just give you that sense of peace and motivation that you desperately need in a situation like this. So it's just like, it's amazing to me once again, and I've known this for a long time, but I just get reminded every once in a while, the true power of story. And that's why I'm a storyteller. That's why I'm sharing my story. Because it's truly powerful and it can completely transform lives. And speaking of story, that's another thing that I forgot to mention. The cell phone in the metaphor not only allows me to communicate with my wife, but it also allows me to chronicle and to share my experience as I'm going through it, as I'm traveling through the desert, as I'm, trying and struggling and fighting to survive. And that is also a very important part because, you know, living out loud, that's, the name of the channel. That's been a very important concept to me for a couple of years at this point. And it's just, that is also a very big part of the experience that I'm going through. So I'm very grateful for having had that understanding, for coming up with that metaphor, because it just gave me so much clarity and so much motivation. And also it helped my wife understand really kind of what I've been going through. And to me, it also made me realize I've been really tormenting myself for no reason. It's because I put myself in that situation of I need to take care of my wife, I need to protect her. But since the beginning of the relationship, we were very clear that we will always be honest, we will always share everything with each other. And as a result of that, that causes her pain, it causes her sadness. So I want to protect her. I feel it's my responsibility to protect her. Yet because we swore to always tell the truth and share everything, I keep causing her pain and sadness. And it had me stuck in this never-ending loop of I keep making her, I keep hurting her. And then feeling like a crappy husband because I'm not able to protect her from myself. But with that entire metaphor that I just described and everything that I realized, it's not my responsibility to protect her, to take care of her. Yes, in the future, once I get out of that desert, once I'm healed, once I'm back to normal, once I'm back to civilization, yes, okay, then I will have the strength to take care of her, to protect her. But for now, it is not my responsibility. Having that responsibility is distracting me and it's tormenting me and it's keeping me from focusing on what's really important, which is getting out of that desert alive. So I know that's been a lot of information that I threw at you. I tried to present it in the most clear and logical manner and hopefully got across properly. But I feel like no matter what I say, no matter how well I explain it, I can never fully communicate how truly intense and transformative this simple experience was yesterday. And I just feel it's kind of like, let's say 6-7 months ago, I forget exactly when it was, when I had that shift in perspective and it just completely changed everything. It feels somewhat like that. That was how intense it was. So I just thought it was very important to share that. Hopefully you were able to understand it, at least grasp a portion of the implication that comes along with everything that I just described. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.